What is up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Guys, we here. I was scrolling through and seeing an interesting video from robe trotting here with the real reason Scandinavia doesn't have air conditioning. And I know I've seen some videos kind of explaining or talking about that they don't. So I know they're probably going to go into details on why they don't. Because I know for us, we got to have the AC. But I ain't gonna lie, our bills have been high, especially in the summertime. Especially in the summer, because you gotta run it throughout the day. Maybe at night it would be better, but throughout the day, most time you gotta run it with the ceiling fan. That's how hot it's been. But we finna check this out, see what it's about. Y'all hit that subscribe button, send down those recommendations.
Cousin Anders, it's seriously the hottest day ever.
For real, Cousin Anders, it's so hot. I'm sweating through my Axe body spray.
Not the axe.
Yeah, Anders, my iced coffee is literally melting all over me.
Well, Cousin Anders, bro, why don't you guys have air conditioning here in Scandinavia?
Seriously, Anders, how is there no air conditioning in Scandinavia?
Really, Anders, how do you get by all summer without air conditioning in Scandinavia?
Right, that's definitely gonna be different. Like all summer. I mean, I'm sure I know it's probably cold most of the time, but I don't know. The summer heat be different. It'd be super different these days.
No, it's not your American cousins. It's Mike and Derek as usual. But we have to experience when our friends and family come over questions about why there's no air conditioning in Scandinavia.
So we decided to make a video to answer this question once and for all, and I did a little bit of research to prepare. So let's watch the first clip of that now. Now, our first reason why there's no air conditioning in Scandinavia is probably one of the most obvious reasons, but that is its location. Scandinavia, most people know, is in the northern part of Europe. But what most people don't realize, especially Americans, is that Europe is a lot farther north than you realize. So the most northern part of it is pretty far north. And the farther away you are from the equator, the less likely it is that you're going to need air conditioning. But what I don't think people realize is that cities like Oslo and Stockholm, hardly in the Arctic Circle, are farther north than almost any city in North America that's very populated. In fact, it's about the same latitude north as Anchorage, Alaska.
Whoa.
In fact, Quebec City, Canada, which is one of the farthest north population centers in North America, is actually at a higher latitude than cities like Munich and Paris. In fact, it's only 1 degree of latitude more farther north than the city of Venice, Italy.
Wow.
And it's much easier to visualize and understand when you lay a map of both continents over one another. You can really see just how far north some cities in Europe are when they're laid over the same map of North America.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense because, I mean, we know, if you know, I've never been to Canada, but I know it gets cold. And just being, I live in Texas, so I'm way down there, way down south. And I know it, like, I've been to New York, the temperature is definitely different. Like, it's a different breeze than what I'm used to, especially in Texas, which I'm sure if somebody was to come from New York or Philadelphia down to Texas, they will see that sun is different. There's a different type of heat down here.
Right, so we moved to Copenhagen from Philadelphia in the US, and at the time, I really didn't think that it would be too far north or south than Philadelphia. I really kind of expected that it would be the same weather. We had been to the city once and it was relatively similar weather to Philadelphia. And then I actually realized that as far as latitude and how far north of the equator Philadelphia is, it's actually closer to Naples, Italy, or Ankara, Turkey. Like, it's way south of where Scandinavia is. Like, it's literally Greece.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a 3-time state finalist of the National Geography Bee, and I can tell you Copenhagen's the same latitude as roughly Juneau, Alaska.
Yeah.
Now, what keeps Europe warm is the famous jet stream, which pulls up the warm water from the Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico, and brings it up the Atlantic. And that's why Europe has a climate more similar to the US than things at the same latitude, which would literally be the northern half of Canada.
Right, so Canada's a tundra, but Europe is moderate because of the jet stream.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's also why Scandinavian summers still aren't warm in the same way that they are in, say, Philadelphia. So even though the Northeast maybe has average temperatures that are the same, the summer is much, much hotter in the US, and you really couldn't get away with living there without air conditioning. It would be a big adjustment.
Yeah, that is true, because I mean, maybe this year usually is hot, but this year it was a different type of hot Which I'm sure every year, if y'all see summertime, there'll be videos people cooking like on the sidewalks and the concrete and stuff. That's how hot it be. Like you can basically fry some egg, cook some eggs. You can make a whole breakfast outside in the summer. That's how hot it is.
In Scandinavia, the summer period might not be as long, and really it's not. We know that. Also, sometimes it's just not warm at all, or you have a heat wave that lasts a few days, even a few weeks. But generally, that's the only period where it's really
Kind of sound like Texas.
moderately uncomfortable.
The weather changes.
So this is our 6th summer in Scandinavia. Our first one in 2017 wasn't really a summer. 2018 was an entire summer of summer. It was super hot the whole
really
time
hot.
through. You never know what you're going to get with it, and usually the heat waves pass after a few days, so it's not enough to be more than maybe a little bit extra uncomfortable for 2 or 3 nights.
Yeah, so in
Sounds like
short,
Texas.
Scandinavia is much farther north. The summers are very different than they are maybe in the US, and that's why you don't quite need air conditioning. But that's not all, so let's watch the next clip. Now, across Norway, Denmark, and Sweden, you'll find that most homes are built out of brick, and most of them have been standing for hundreds of years. Not only is the brick a more durable building material, but it's also much better for heating and cooling. On a hot summer day, Scandinavian bricks soak
love
up
those
most
windows.
of the warm air. This means that they build a kind of a protective area to keep the warm air outside and the cool air inside. And the reverse is the same in the winter when people are heating their homes from the interior. So these brick buildings in Scandinavia mean that you only have moderate changes in temperature, when the opposite is true in North American buildings, which are often made out of vinyl siding, artificial stucco, or aluminum. Part of this is because Scandinavian buildings were designed long before air conditioning even existed, and even before electricity existed.
That makes even more sense right there. And like you said, just being far north, the bricks, that's something new because I never really, heard that before. Like, I know our house is here. We have my house, we have a brick home. But, the layers before they started putting the brick and stuff on, it's like a bunch of wood and all that other stuff. But it definitely, I feel like here you definitely gonna feel, if you don't have no air conditioning, you're gonna feel what it's like outside. Whatever the temperature is outside, that's what you're gonna feel inside. No matter the sun, if it's sunny and hot, or cold and snowy, rainy, you're gonna feel it.
Most of them were cooled by just having cross breezes because there were windows on both sides of the house. And even new construction in Scandinavia often includes an abundance of windows, not just for light, but also for the movement of air indoors.
I guess the material that we build with down here, like we have brick buildings, but they put it up with wood first before they like lay the bricks and all that stuff. And y'all know the process of building a house type of thing. But that makes a lot of sense though, because here I kid you, I feel like if you don't have air or nothing, then like your house would just adapt to whatever temperature it is outside. And that's even worse because when it's super cold, now you just freezing, got to grab blankets. Then when it's super hot, you just in there sweating.
You're saying they just don't build them like they used to.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Far. But really, when it comes down to it, homes in Scandinavia were built with a lot of things in mind and things that are kind of unique to the atmosphere and living in Scandinavia. So one, you've got more windows to let in more light, but that also helps with the heating and cooling and making things more temperature efficient, where that's just not the case with American homes.
Yeah, the natural atmospherics of homes in Scandinavia, even flats in Copenhagen typically have windows facing 2 different directions, get a cross breeze. The same things that help bring in light and warmth in the wintertime help in the summertime, having cross breezes and ventilation and fresh air moving around pretty easily. And you can see it in some of the modern designs as well, where a lot of the more modern builders and architects are looking to engineer in the design of the buildings to replace the need for heating and ventilation and cooling with more natural engineered materials and ways to be able to retain or repel heat depending on what the season is and what the sun's doing.
Yeah, so Scandinavian design isn't just like simple patterns and white walls. There's really a lot of ingenuity in those designs, and you see it not just in modern buildings, but you also see it in the older homes and the older buildings, whether they're residential or commercial buildings all across Scandinavia. And there's actually a bit of the design of the city that plays a part in this too. So let's watch that. Now, despite being a bit older than the cities in North America, the cities in Scandinavia are actually designed a lot better to fight something called the urban heat island effect.
Urban heat island.
Essentially, that's what happens when you remove all the green spaces in a city and fill them in with concrete and asphalt roads and buildings that absorb a lot of heat. Now, the cities of North America really grew during the Industrial Revolution, and they exploded in growth during a time where there was very rapid expansion in the urban cores. And I guess you could say that there also wasn't a lot of regulation. This meant that buildings just wiped out all that green space to make way for all of the cars and factories. And essentially, the only urban planning involved was to get as many people working in factories close to those factories that were in the urban core of American and North American cities. Scandinavian cities also grew during that time, of course, but in a slightly different way. And since this isn't an urban planning video, we won't go down that rabbit hole today, but let's just say that you can really feel the effects of having more urban space during the summers in Scandinavia, where they're better suited for people to have open space to hang out and escape the heat indoors, as well as more ability to cool because they're not as densely full of concrete like the concrete jungles of North America.
That makes sense, because that heat and concrete, hey, that combination, please do not go outside barefooted. That's a deadly combination right there with that sun and that concrete or gravel. It's, man, I went to check the mail one time barefooted and, man, my feet were burning.
Okay. In addition, you also have things like an investment in public transportation so that people aren't driving into the cities every day. You don't have massive roadways collecting all of that heat. And as well, you've got pedestrianized city centers and cores that make it a lot easier to not have cities taken up by parking lots for cars and essentially have more places for people to go outside in the summer and the hot weather.
So this time you're saying trees good and cars bad.
Yeah, I mean, that really oversimplifies the situation, but basically when it comes down to it is having these really beautiful parks and open spaces and green space in Scandinavian cities really plays a dividend. You have better air quality. It doesn't trap air in the hot summer months. And you have places to go within the city for people to gather and either escape the heat in the summer months or maybe have a nice, beautiful Christmas market in the winter months. You know, it plays a lot of impact on the cities themselves, the way that they've been designed.
Yeah, and I can feel it coming from Philadelphia. It's kind of a classic asphalt and concrete jungle. It traps that heat. And if you're in the middle of the city, it's just so much warmer than if you go outside of it, even into the suburbs. And you get more of that suburban openness feel in all the major cities here in Scandinavia. We saw it in Oslo, we see it here in Copenhagen. I mean, what would be a nice summer day in Copenhagen without everybody flocking to Amastrand and Fælleparken and King's Garden and all the open spaces that we have. And honestly, they break up the city as well. And so it means you don't have all this trapped heat in the asphalt and concrete, even though it is a major city and there is asphalt and concrete all over the place.
Right. So we even remarked about it in our Oslo video, how you have a beautiful waterfall in the middle of the city. Like that
Is that like those apartments or something? Business?
In our Oslo video, how you have a beautiful waterfall in the middle of the city. Like that pays so much dividend to the people that live there. I'm actually at the airport. The reason that I wanted to make a point here is because Scandinavians don't need air conditioning because often they'll have at least a 2 or 3 week holiday that they'll go on with their family to actually be out of the country and ironically maybe even go somewhere warmer during the summer. This means that businesses will slow down and offices, even restaurants, might close for a month or at least give people the ability to work from home. And then in that period, often you will find people who can go to maybe a mountain house where it's a little bit cooler, or a house on the coast, a summer house where they can escape the heat and therefore not need as much air conditioning. It's not consistently warm like it is some parts of the US from, say, May to October, so people can avoid these warm weeks of the month. And those that don't can find other ways to deal with it, somewhere to escape to.
Yeah, because that, I'm telling you, that in October, I ain't gonna lie, in October, maybe probably since we're in September, probably close to the end of September, that's when like that perfect weather comes, because you know fall is coming and stuff. Fall has the perfect weather, like a good combination of that heat and cool. It's just the perfect, especially here in Texas. Like it's gonna be at least like 70 degrees, 70, maybe low 80s, perfect. But once it hits 60 and stuff, 60 is not bad. 60 something not bad unless it's like a breeze. But this makes a lot of sense. I just know here, like with the air, like he made a good point saying that, you know, most people, they just take off of work for a month, go somewhere cooler, go somewhere hotter. Like, that's very convenient to even have a place to go and being able to take off that time. Like, just think about all the people that can't do that here, you know? It sucks, but shoot. It just, the summertime, the air conditioner, it runs up your bill. It runs up. I know ours was high.
Now, that may seem wild to Americans that a business would close during a busy summer period, but everybody needs their holiday time. And it also gives an excuse not to have a business open and be cooling a large commercial building and schools out. So really, there's no need for people to be sitting inside in an air-conditioned building like there might be in the US. On top of that, even with rising temperatures, there's really no demand to retrofit buildings, whether they be commercial or schools or government buildings, to include air conditioning. And most people aren't even here during the hottest periods of the year. And sometimes it's only a couple days or a couple weeks.
Yeah, it is kind of ironic that a lot of Scandinavians go south for the summer, right? Like, you would probably expect them to do that more in the winter. And I thought the same thing when we first moved in the winter time of 2017. I remember that first spring, we had a spring festival at work, and I was out with some colleagues, and one of my colleagues said that him and his family were going to Portugal for 3 weeks. And I literally remember this conversation of saying to him, "Why are you leaving now? It's finally nice. Like, why wouldn't you stay?" And he was like, "Oh, Derek, this is your first summer in Scandinavia. Like, you can't depend on it staying like this. It might be miserable tomorrow. It might get really cold for the weekend, and then we won't see the sun again until..."
This definitely sounds like Texas. Because right now I'm looking, I got a window right in front of me. The sun is out. Right now. It was pouring down rain in the past 2 days. And now it's about 90 degrees out there. It's crazy.
October. And now that I've had a couple summers under my belt, I completely know what he was talking about. I get it. You're going to go somewhere nice like Southern Europe where at least you know you're going to have sun and the beach and be able to really enjoy summertime.
And it's funny though, when you do get those amazing stretches of weather in Copenhagen where everyone flocks to the water
or anywhere,
it's amazing. The problem is when you live in the land with no AC, it means you get to pick your poison at night. And what I mean is that you have to decide, do you want to fall asleep or do you want to sleep in? And what that means is you have to decide, do you leave your windows open or do you cover them with blackout shades? Because if you cover them with blackout shades, you're not going to get a cross breeze and it means you're going to struggle to fall asleep. But if you open the windows up, then all of a sudden, 3 a.m., the sun starts coming up and now suddenly you are
3 a.m.
Yeah, and it's actually even earlier the farther north you go. So our friends in Norway and Sweden and northern Jutland, like, they get it worse than we do.
Absolutely.
But
the sun start coming up at 3 a.m. That's different. I remember some of the videos telling me that the sun be down just for a little bit, but 3 a.m. it's pitch black here at 3 a.m.
Absolutely, but that's the challenge, is you have to decide which poison do you want to take with this, because either you ain't going to fall asleep or you ain't going to sleep in.
No, it's absolutely true. But luckily, temperatures are already basically at this time of year starting to come back down. The light balance is almost normal again, and it's really not that long of a period to worry about. I guess people that are born and raised in Scandinavia are used to it. We're still not there yet, but it's not that long to deal with.
No, and don't forget there's a carbon emissions element to this too, not having AC.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why it wouldn't be worth investing in. And that's a great transition. So I'm giving you a raise, and let's watch the next clip.
Now, one of the most obvious reasons to cut back on air conditioning is the impact that it has on climate through carbon emissions. And while most people care about controlling their carbon emissions, I think you could go as far as to say that care for the environment and protecting it is something that's almost fundamental to Scandinavian values. That said, I don't think there would ever be a high demand for air conditioning since it actually contributes to the problem. It's really viewed as wasteful. In fact, in southern...
You know, the U.S., we don't mind using stuff that's going to harm the environment and stuff. Like, it's crazy, but that's how it be. I mean, I'm sure y'all seen the video with all the stuff they put in our food that's not even legal in other countries.
In Europe, where cooling units and air conditioning is a bit more prevalent, there's actually controls being put in place in many places to ensure that people aren't overcooling. In fact, in Italy, you're actually not allowed to turn on air conditioning in public spaces if the temperature outside is not above 25 degrees or 77 degrees Fahrenheit for us Yankees. In fact, a lot of alternative cooling methods are actually being researched and put in place. In Copenhagen, cool water from the Baltic Sea is actually pumped underground and then piped throughout the city in order to cool public buildings. Some of the largest commercial buildings like Magazine du Nord and the largest hospital in Denmark, Rigshospital, is actually cooled through this method. And if you're ever staying in Copenhagen, you may find this out yourself because over 4,000 hotel rooms are cooled using this method, as well as the National Museum of Art. So there's a good chance that you may even be experiencing these alternatives to air conditioning while we speak.
Damn, I had no idea they actually use seawater to cool a lot of these buildings.
Yeah, it's crazy, but it actually makes a lot of sense. And once again, just like a lot of things Scandinavian and a lot of inventions that are come from that area, this is an example of Danes using their geography to their advantage, right? So normally, you know, being that far north, being surrounded by cold water, you know, what do? Except you use that geography to your advantage, and they found ways. There's over 20 kilometers of pipes underneath the city where they're piping this cold water from the Baltic to cool down the buildings.
Wow.
And it's pretty great.
That's awesome, and it definitely reduces the carbon footprint from what you would have to do otherwise with AC.
Yeah, 100%. It's I'm not the science guy, but I think it's physics. It's just, you know, it doesn't take a lot of electricity. It's mostly gravity that's pushing the water into the pipes. And almost like the way that district heating works, it's just spreading that cold water to cool down the buildings. And that's, you know, that's how it works. And again, it's just low emissions, and you don't have these giant air conditioning units that you might see and everybody sees when they go to New York City and they look down over the buildings. There's always those rooftops with those giant air conditioning units on top. That's why you don't see that, and you don't need that necessarily in cities like Copenhagen, Stockholm, Oslo, Bergen. Like, you don't need those giant rooftop cooling systems.
And see, I know here you can actually buy, they have the AC units that you can actually buy at the store, and you like put it in your window and it kind of brings a breather. I don't know if that's better or the ones that they already built in here in the houses, but I know the air conditioner, when you have to stick it outside the window, those things get real cold. They get real cold real fast too. But this was good. This was definitely opened my eyes to a lot.
That's good, and that means that those roofs can be used for much more productive things. They can be terraces, gardens, hell, rooftop bars.
Yeah, exactly. I love a rooftop bar.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it's a much better use of the space.
Yeah.
And if you want to see more of some of the things that really surprised us about Oslo, we've mentioned a few of them so far in this video, click right here and watch that next.
And make sure you subscribe and hit the bell, because pretty soon we'll do a deep dive showing the differences between my childhood home in the US and our home in Denmark.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
Hi.
Hey, that would be a good video. I gotta check that out for sure. But yeah, this opened my eyes to a lot. Definitely can't wait to visit Scandinavia, because when I go, I'm definitely gonna be, hey, that's gonna be the first thing. One of the first things I do outside of eating, of course, the air conditioning. See if I can survive. Because like I said, I get hot fast for some reason. I don't know. I used to not be this way, but my body, I start sweating and all that stuff when it's hot. I don't know what it is. I don't know. Hopefully it's not bad medical type of issue or something like that. But yeah, definitely got to test this theory. But I definitely believe these guys. You know, they give some good information. You know, they do their research and stuff. So definitely appreciate Robe Trotting for this video. Y'all let me know what you think. Pretty sure some people may have air conditioners. Not everybody, you know. I did see somebody in another video, the lady with Slavsvard, I believe Slavsvard. She had the little refrigerator with the ice maker. So, and I know a lot of them don't have those big refrigerators in Europe. So, but this was good. Y'all let me know what you think. Y'all hit that subscribe button, send down those recommendations, and y'all be blessed, be the best, and be you. I'm out.